And welcome to the Daily Autism Radio Show across these great radio stations on the Gulf Coast of Florida. My name is Mark. My wife, Melissa, not here this week. It's been a week. It has been a week, as many parents of autism understand that. Things change quickly, so riding a little bit solo today, but excited. We're going to be joined by Daniel Stein. I got to tell you, I've never heard of the relationship between autism and adaptive fitness, but we're going to have a great conversation with Daniel Stein. He is the founder of Special Strong and SpecialStrong.com. Really fascinating conversation about exercise, not only obviously what it does for your body, especially if you are autistic, when we talk about muscle development and the content of muscle in your body, but also the mind. That's really what got me fascinated in the changes in the brain with specific types of exercise as it relates to adaptive fitness. So really fascinating conversation with Daniel. We're going to join him, or he'll join us, I should say, coming up in a bit. Also going to get to this topic of there's just been so many stories, and it seems like now, and there's more technology and there's more awareness, but the treatment of these kids in these special needs programs, specifically at public schools, has really gone off the deep end. I mean, the last 2 weeks, I think across our social media channels, there's been at least half a dozen. That's what we know about. You know what I mean? That's just what we know about. So, dailyautism.com, if you're interested in following us and seeing some of these videos and our commentary about it and our audience, dailyautism.com, and you can link to our Facebook page, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and a variety of other methods. Thank you to our title sponsor, Tracy Slepcevic. She is the Warrior Mom, and her book is called Warrior Mom, which you can get now at warriormom.org. We were one of the first to read it. It is a phenomenal book, and I got to tell you, this will open your eyes, and it'll get you set on a path. It will get you set on a path as a guidebook, which so many books, especially books that are written for parents who are either going through a diagnosis for their child or are fresh out of a diagnosis. I love the intention of so many of these books. It's just some of it, it's kind of like wandering out in a forest, and they're great books because you're getting interesting perspective. But then the book kind of ends and you go, well, now what? I'm just kind of out in this forest. And the reality is that, in those situations, and we're just humans, is that, everybody can just give you their perspective, their story. It's all they know. It's like even when you ask somebody advice, I say this to people all the time, even when you ask somebody advice, you're getting their best version of you. They're trying to put themselves in your situation. But at the end of the day, it's just their version of what they would do if they were you. So a lot of these books are like that because, again, it's kind of human nature. But what Tracy does is she just gives you the guide. She does tell her story with her son and talking about underlying conditions and healing elements of those underlying conditions of autism. And, then she goes down the road of, all right, here's the guide. Here's how to put it in action. So that's what we really appreciate. warriormom.org. Follow Tracy on all of her socials. Tracy's also debuting the Autism Health Summit. This is coming early 2024. It's at a really awesome resort in San Antonio, Texas. And tickets, it's in San Antonio, Texas, but tickets now are available. autismhealth.com for the Autism Health Summit. We'll be there, and really a great resource for parents to get together. I think it's the one thing I regret a little bit when we first got into the diagnosis is sort of not kind of surrounding myself and kind of finding that insulation of people who are also A, going through it at the same time, or B, had just gone through it. And, I think self-research is great. It's somewhat peaceful. There's kind of a method where it's like, okay, I'm doing this and I'm finding this information. It feels good. But sometimes it's like you got to ask people questions, And so this is a great summit to get together. First of its kind, too. autismhealth.com for those tickets. So I want to start off with again, we were talking about the situation in these schools and the mistreatment of children, which is now really becoming ultra documented as time goes on and on and on. We have this situation in West Virginia. We just had a situation in Ohio. And specifically to the one in West Virginia where the mom put a hidden microphone. There's some great technology out there. Angel Sense is one of them. There's some great micro technology out there that can, record what's being said around your child, and the transmitter then sends that information to a server, which you have access to. You can also live stream it. And really just heard some awful things from these teachers. And, many of these kids are nonverbal, and even the ones that are verbal have a hard time, giving feedback of what they hear, if it bothers them, if it's hurtful to them, if it's dangerous to them. And it's really become a debate of, first off, videos in the classroom, special needs classrooms. That's kind of been something that's been smoldering across the country, even specifically here in Florida. And, everybody says, well, there's laws about recording people, and it's true, but many times people confuse that with like FCC telephone laws. So if you were to call someone on the phone and you record them, well, there's laws. Some parties or some states, it's called a one-party state. So just one person on the phone needs to be aware that the conversation is being recorded. Of course, if you're the one recording, well, you're aware, and then that's it. You meet that challenge. Other times it's a two-party, so there would have to be both people on the phone. Then it gets a little dicey when it's in person. Okay, so when you're just next to somebody and they're talking and you're recording them and they don't know, well, what are the laws? Well, that's when it gets kind of situational. Well, are you doing it because you believe somebody is being hurt because their rights are being deprived? And then there's a bunch of rabbit holes that kind of funnel off from there. It's like a maze. You can go down this road and that means that. You can go down this road and that means that. So as it relates to these kids, again, the one was audio, and then in Ohio, just about a week ago, the school actually had videos and saw this paraprofessional chase down this child. He was in the autism program and throw him to the floor, struck him in his head, throw him to the floor. And obviously now the police are involved and the district attorney, and there could be a prosecution, and obviously the person has lost their job. But what's interesting is, and disappointing, is that the person who did this, who we saw on the tape, was not certified to be in that situation. They were not certified to be in that classroom and guiding and educating those kids. So, that really got me going down the road, and really the audience across our social media channels kind of spearheaded the whole thing of, and obviously our audience, on social media, of course, it's worldwide, it's everywhere, and that's what makes it beneficial and valuable. But then we started talking about, well, what can we do in our public school system to make sure that our tax dollars are not paying teachers to treat these children in special needs classes poorly, right? Like, I don't want to fund teachers treating kids poorly. That first off is a horrible human element. Okay, I mean, treating kids who are set with sincere challenges with communication and behavior and those type of things, and just relative functional abilities, treating those people terrible. That's inhumane. That's not life. That's not America. Second off, there's a fiscal element to this. Why would we pay our money to pay people to treat children poorly? And I guess you could just take the special needs element out of that altogether, but then, of course, it goes back to, oh, well, you think you can get away with it because the child's either not, high functioning or is nonverbal, and whatever else would be going in somebody's mind. So you've got the human element, and then you've got, obviously, the element of, well, this is not how our system should be funded. We shouldn't pay people to mistreat other people. That just seems practical, right? I mean, that's if you don't agree with that, then there's other fundamental issues, and I think we'll have a hard time connecting on that on those touch points. But we started talking about, in the school system and being special needs parents. Listen, you as a special needs parent, you have every right to pick up the phone and call the principal or members of the school board, superintendent's office, your local representative, and say, hey, Can we check and make sure everybody in this school is certified? Can we just I would like to see the certifications. Can you post them? Are they valid? Are they kept up with the latest standards? A lot of times there'll be a certain certification. This happens all the time with teachers. And then all of a sudden there's a change in curriculum or a change in something, some scenario, and it's like, well, now there's a different certification. So now we got to go back and get this. I mean, at a time, you didn't need to have a CPR certification to be a gym teacher. And then something changed, and then you have to have a CPR certification. We could all agree that those are good, positive developments. You could make the case. There's research that's probably saved people's lives. Of course it has over the time since it was required to have a CPR certification to be in certain settings. So same situation when it relates to special needs, to ASD programs. And really, whether it be public or private, it's just, as far as control, you really look to the local government. They're really going to have most of the control in the public school setting. And that's very, very important. So I would really recommend, whether you're a special needs parent or you're listening to this because you have a niece or a nephew, your best friend's child is autistic, somebody you work with child, a neighbor, and really say, get together. I don't always believe in the strength in numbers because sometimes things can get a little watered down, but in something like this, I think it does make sense. I think it's sensible to get together with people and get a hold of the people that matter in these positions and say, we would like a review of the certifications of these teachers, these paraprofessionals. Could you post them? Is it public record? Could we make sure that they're up to date with the latest certifications? Have there been any strikes on the record that we should be worried about? I mean, we're dropping our kids off there every day. These are kids with special needs. What should we be worried about? And of course, they're always going to say, oh, you shouldn't be worried about anything. Well, let us see for ourselves. Just show us the record. Show us the strikes on the records. Let's see. And if there's nothing, great. And if there's something, well, we should know that. These are children. It's interesting. Parents, we have a responsibility. It's some people would say, well, it's our right as our parent. No, it's your responsibility to take care of your child, right? If you made your child sleep outside and didn't feed your child, you'd be in big trouble. If you knowingly sent your child someplace where things weren't good, you also could be on the hook and should be on the hook. So, I kind of frame this when I talk to either public officials or people involved with public policy as, let me have the full scope so that I can enact all my responsibility. Let me be responsible for my responsibility. And that puts them in a really tough spot because they're like, oh, so they're kind of saying, I want the whole scope of responsibility. I want the brunt of it. So now you have to give it to me. You have to give me all the information so I have the knowledge. That's sometimes kind of an interesting way to frame it. And as it relates, again, to the teachers in the classroom and the other professionals, there's just been so many news stories the last weeks and months, and they're not good. And that's the other thing, too. I think it's easy to go, oh, gosh, I don't want my special needs child in a school setting. And I get it's scary. My goodness, is it scary. But you don't hear about the great stories, unfortunately, because the mainstream media, they get their clicks and their hits and everything on this stuff that is shocking and stuff that people just go, wow, I can't believe it. That's what they want to share. And I get it, and we should be aware of that stuff. And of course, it would be nice to hear the great stories, the teachers and the paraprofessionals and the special needs programs that went the other way with it, and just give that, lifelong great care and really have a passion for a meaningful career with special needs children and children who are autistic. But you're never just going to hear all about that. It's always going to be these other stories that take over. And there's a need for that as well. When it comes to awareness, we should be aware of what is happening inside these public schools because we fund them. We fund them. And it's a basic human right for a child to go to school and be treated fairly and with compassion. And for the general health and awareness of a child, we send them to school so that's upheld. But I do, the purpose of the segment was to encourage people to pick up the phone, send an email, whatever you got to do, and say, hey, there's a lot of stuff going on. how can we be insured? How can we feel good that our child is in the hands that we want them to be? Just show us. Just show us. Let's see let's start there at the certifications. Let's start at the complaints, the strikes on the record, whatever you can do, and start from there. Get a group together. I think overall it's a positive. What that would have done in this case in Ohio is this person, where these allegations are, they're allegations, but there's a video. So, I can tell you the person chased a child, he struck a child, and he threw a child to the floor. That is a reasonable description of what happened on the video that we can all see, and it's the school's video. So what would have happened is if we asked for a review, that person would have been moved to another program, another job, because they weren't certified for what they were doing. Simply, they would not have been in that place in that time to do what they did. And it makes sense because it looks like the person didn't have the temperament, the training, whatever it is, to be in the situation in that ASD program with special needs kids. They shouldn't have been there. They weren't able to handle it. That was not the protocol for the situation. And of course, that's not a protocol for any situation, but especially this. So, when people say, well, what would that really do? What would that do? Well, you conduct a review and you determine somebody is in the wrong place. They don't have the certification. Simply, they're not qualified. It's like anybody that would apply for a job and they just say, you're not qualified because of this. You need this to get that. You don't have it. So this can't become that. And that really is the basis of it. There is more strength. You have more strength. You have more opportunity, and you have more influence than you think if you get a few parents together to make a call, put together a Facebook group, however you want to do it. Obviously, respectfully and everything, and just say there's a lot going on. We need to feel good about our situation. And I think a good principal, which is probably where you want to start, or the head of a specific program, some counties and cities, you've got the principal, but then you've got somebody who's a program leader for the county or the city or the municipality. They're kind of more in charge day to day for the special needs programs. Or start with both. That can't hurt. And just say, we want to avoid this. And I'm sure you do too. And that would be hard for them to argue that. That would be hard for them to push that off. It would be hard for them to stiff arm you on that. You would expect them to say, of course, we want to avoid this. We're on it. We're checking everybody, and we're going to get back to you with a full update. And although you wouldn't want to hear, hey, we found 3 people that weren't certified or didn't have proper certifications or didn't have qualification, you wouldn't want to hear that. But also, you would rather hear that and then some action taken. And it doesn't have to be disciplinary action. It may not be those people's fault. They may have been hired in a spot where they shouldn't have been hired. But who knows what you could have prevented for these families. So that is something that we highly recommend after going through all of these videos, talking with so many people from our audience and public policy leaders, and honestly and frankly, parents. Because at the end of the day, we're talking about families here. Everybody wants to talk about the stakeholders. Well, stakeholders, that's a term, but these are people, right? Every stakeholder is a person. They go home at night to a family. They wake up to a family. So it's parents and kids. And teachers. And teachers, they go home to families. And superintendents, they go home to families. So it's just people. And when we get these people together, these families, and we say we want to protect these children have been dealt a card that makes it tough for them to communicate in a way that most people are used to. And so we've got to ensure, because we know that other people know that, we've got to make sure that they're not being taken advantage of because of that card that they have been dealt. I want to thank one of our partners, Fun Factory Sensory Gym. Remarkable organization. They just posted some videos about their latest installs. These sensory experiences that they built, by the way, they've done over 50,000 installs. They do them in homes. They do them in schools, churches, therapy centers. But I want you to go to funfactorysensorygym.com. They do a great job across their social media channels in amplifying their work. This is a work of passion. You can see the interviews that they've done with people in the company, and they come out, and this is obviously a very meaningful organization that they have built. And I just love the fact that they come in and they really do a great job with the before and afters, and you kind of see this hollowed out room, and you go, well, how is this going to work? And then they'll show, bringing in the equipment and all of the items, and by the end of it, obviously doesn't look like the same room, But it's more than just the aesthetic of it. It's just you know that the kids and their parents are going to get so much out of it. That sensory gym, that feeling of just belonging, having fun and no worries, and it's a fun and a safe spot. FunFactorySensoryGym.com. Again, they do the installs all across the country, whether it's residential in a home, a basement, or again in a commercial setting. So if you're interested in that, or you know somebody that might be interested in that, we have a lot of people. We have a lot of entrepreneurs that follow our channels, listen to our podcast and radio shows, and they're building businesses around serving the families of autism, whether it be therapy centers or things similar. This could be a great opportunity for you to partner with Fun Factory Sensory Gym. Again, FunFactorySensoryGym.com. Real quick, I wanted to talk about the Katie Beckett waiver for parents of autism. This is something that we've talked about it before. It's so beneficial to so many families across the country. And as we just continue to have more and more parents go through this process of a diagnosis for their child. And then, of course, when you come out of that, you're left going, well, now what? What do I do now? And life starts to look so different for so many parents. But a lot of people get frustrated because they say, well, I have a decent income. I'm a middle-class family, and it looks like so many of these services I'm going to be outside the bubble for. But the problem is these services are so needed, and so you get the whole, issue of scarcity, and so the services are expensive. And so the Katie Beckett waiver, and I don't want to get too specific because it's a little bit different in every state on qualifications and stuff like that. But kind of a long story short, Katie Beckett was a young girl, and she was in the hospital, and she couldn't afford private therapies at home. And this is back in the 80s, and President Reagan found out about her story, and so basically what it comes down to is, they don't hold your income against you, parents' income, if the child needs medical services. And so, like I said, it does vary a bit state by state, and sometimes it's called something different. But at the end of the day, it all started as the Katie Beckett waiver. So wherever you are and whatever you're looking for, you want to research your Katie Beckett waiver. And, even when, we started talking about this a couple years ago across our social media channels, which, of course, you can get to at dailyautism.com, people were amazed. They said, oh, we were told we could never get this at our house. Or if we wanted it, we'd have to pay, $8,000 a month or something like that. Typically, these are numbers that families can't sustain, especially when you think about so many families and moms and dads. Many times, somebody's got to quit a job because you have a very exhaustive therapy schedule, or the child needs to stay at home. Therapists are coming in and out of the house, or you're driving to therapy centers multiple times a day and multiple days a week. The other side of it is, and this is the most unfortunate, is you have people that lose their jobs. They get fired because, they go, I know I used to be able to do this and that, and now I can't. Or I'm sorry I've been late this week. My child hasn't gone to bed in 3 days. Or my child's having a meltdown. I can't be at this meeting. I'm sorry. My child just hurt themselves, and I need to help them. And we've just heard it just time and time again. We hear it, and it really is heartbreaking because you've got the parents who, they understand they need to make a living. They understand they have a career. Many people love their careers. But then this thing comes along, and you just say, I'm going to do everything I can do to be there for my child as a parent. And that always has to come above a career. But then you also have to live. You have a mortgage. The point of having a refrigerator is that it's full of food. And so that all, the process for all that stuff becomes it's stressful anyway, but it becomes very stressful when you're talking about having a special needs child. So Katie Beckett waivers is what you want to look into. It's what you want to research. And I think you're going to find some great information. And again, if you're listening to this because you help, you're helping a brother or sister with their child, your niece or nephew or neighbor or coworker, Katie Beckett waiver in your particular state. You're going to find some really valuable information. Whenever we talk about this across our video shows on social media, inevitably there's dozens of messages. Thanks so much for looking into this. I can't believe I didn't know this before. I've heard people actually crossing state lines. They'll move because certain applications of the waiver in a neighboring state are much better. And when you talk about being able to not just save the money, but afford your child something that they otherwise couldn't get where you live, and I think it was Indiana and Kentucky, a family reached out to me and said, "Yeah, we jumped the state line. I forget which way it was, because we were able to get this, and that, and it's so important for our child." And so they moved like 25 miles to take advantage of it, become a resident of another state, and I mean, it's always interesting because those scenarios sound almost fake, like who would do that? But then you get into this situation and you have a special needs child, and their needs, although always special, change as the child gets older. They get bigger, they get stronger, and things really become different as the child kind of goes through the cycle of life as they develop. And so I totally understand why somebody would do that, because you just watch your child and you go, okay, I know what they need now, and then you go, but what are they going to need next year? What are they going to need in 5 years? What's life going to look like in 10 years? And are we in the right spot? Are we going to be able to give them the right things? You're almost like a weather forecaster, except, the weather forecaster, the longest they'll go out was like, the 7 to 10 day outlook, right? And even at that, once you get 5 days in, you're just like, nah, I don't believe any of this stuff. It's not going to be like that. But, when you talk about special needs and a special needs family, you're talking about like 7 to 10 years and thinking about what your child may need. It's an interesting question, right? What does life look like in 10 years? And I want to bring up the CEO of Technology North, Ling Huang. And Ling is a remarkable guy. He has developed a company and a technology. It's called Technology North, but he sought to answer the question, what will life look like for my child when he graduates high school? And Ling was really on the trailblazing end of this, of going, okay, people have this idea where, you go get a job at like a grocery store, and we're talking about young people on the autism spectrum. Maybe, you go 1 or 2 days a week, or you're part of a program that meets 1 or 2 days a week, and you're sort of just hoping that things work out. But what Ling understood is that these young adults can provide an unbelievable and valuable service to society at large. And that's what he began building. And that's, how Technology North came to be formed. And first off, I love that he built this around his son, Brian, because to me, that's when the meaningful things happen, right? When you say, I'm doing this for a greater purpose than profit. Profit is always an integral part of business. We understand that, and it has to be, of course. I mean, how can you have a business without a profit? But when the general overall purpose is something meaningful, and it's about young children and family, I think that's when the magic happens. And that's what Ling has built with Technology North. I invite you to learn about them at technologynorth.net. See what Ling has done. He's won multiple awards. His company has won multiple awards, and he is just getting started. Technologynorth.net. You can also connect with Ling on LinkedIn. He's very active there and really just getting started. I think he's got a model for something really special and special worldwide for young adults on the autism spectrum, and especially answering the question, what does life look like when my child graduates high school? Technologynorth.net. Okay, we've been talking about this interview. I've been very excited. Daniel Stein, he is the CEO of Special Strong, adaptive fitness training for people, young kids on the autism spectrum, and not just young kids, but that's kind of where we're gonna focus our conversations, and really the fantastic benefits, not just physically, by the way. This really opened my eyes, but mentally. We deep dove into the brain and the changes of the brain when children begin this program with Special Strong. Again, this is Daniel Stein, and the website, if you want to learn more about their organization, specialstrong.com. All right, we're hanging out with Daniel Stein. He is the CEO of Special Strong. I almost don't have to say that. I look at you and I'm like, yeah, this guy spends most of his time in a gym. I mean, you're playing the part very well.
I appreciate that. I need the gym. The gym is not recreation for me. It is very therapeutic, as it is for our clients.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I missed my first workout in like 6 months a couple days ago, and I got to tell you, I was off. I was just off the whole day. It really, the 6 inches between my ears, it's like I was in this fog. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So did you say that you missed your first workout in a 6-month period? So you worked out all those days in a row over 6 months. That's incredible. Look, good for you, Mark.
Thank you. Well, it's like you said, it's the mental therapy. When you have 5 kids and and my youngest Cal autistic, we have to do it. But yeah, I got to tell you, that's a great routine to get in. If you can get into that routine, just do it. And not every day is like a 10 out of 10 workout, but just to get a sweat going, I got to tell you, it changes my whole day. I want to talk about Special Strong. This is a really remarkable organization you've built. You and your wife have built this up. And talk to me about, as it relates to autism, special needs, adaptive fitness. I've never really heard that before. Kind of explain that to what exactly that is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, really adaptive fitness is we're ultimately taking traditional fitness and we're adapting it for whoever is in front of us. So you mentioned autism. So let's say that we have an athlete in front of us who has autism. So I'm going to need to adapt my communication with that individual. I'm going to need to adapt the program design for that specific individual in a very different way than just traditional personal training or traditional fitness training. So that's how adaptive fitness is different than just regular fitness.
How did you, everybody's like in a category, they're drawn to a category. Why are you not just doing, personal training? You've obviously gotten in the category of special needs. There's got to be an underlying story there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I was 4 years old, I was diagnosed with a learning disability. My parents got me involved in sports, and that led to me working out in the gym, which really made a big difference in my life, having ADHD. And so naturally, I fell in love with fitness and working out. And then after high school, I actually had a mentor of mine sit down with me one day, and he said, Daniel, I had this vision from God where I saw you working with kids and adults that had disabilities. And at that particular time, I was a full-time personal banker at Chase Bank. And again, I love fitness, but I never considered it as a career until my mentor gave me that vision. So that was in 2011. And so I ended up making a career change after that and getting into the mainstream general population fitness world. Started working with regular people that had no limitations of any kind. And then eventually in 2016, my wife and I started this company, Special Strong, all based on my mentor's idea. And I'll never forget, the first time I had the opportunity to work with a client, this particular client's name was Dakota, and he had a drug overdose that put him in a wheelchair. He was paralyzed. He was, I believe he was a paraplegic. And this was my first opportunity to work with someone that had a disability. And I absolutely fell in love. I didn't have any experience working with disabilities before that. But when I got to work with Dakota, everything changed for me.
Yeah, the circle that I run in now, we talk a lot about meaningful, purposeful business, and it goes beyond dollars and cents. And of course, everybody needs dollars and cents for things to make sense. But there is something above, much deeper, and there's kind of a depth, that you can kind of explore in business when you find that calling. Let's talk specifically to autism, just because so many who follow this channel, that is what they are seeking out, information about, specifically their kids. Whether it's a success story or just an overall theme that you have noticed, what's kind of been the guiding principle and some of the visions that you've had, with your clients, people you've worked with about autism and Special Strong.
Yeah. So, our company has multiple locations across several states. And so we've worked with a lot of clients who have autism. And I have to share a personal story about a young man named Robert. And so I started working with Robert when he was about 15 years old. And Robert had severe meltdowns, severe behavior challenges to the point where, his parents couldn't stop his meltdowns. So they would give him a football helmet, put it on his head, and just like you have that brick wall behind you, he would go against a real brick wall and hit his head against the brick wall with a helmet on. I mean, he was such a big kid, his parents couldn't stop him when he had these emotional meltdowns. And so they came to see us. And, it took a couple of years of working with him, but he is completely emotionally meltdown free. It doesn't mean that he never has, small meltdowns, but he no longer has those meltdowns with the helmet. As a matter of fact, this is really neat. In addition to putting a helmet on his head, they would give him boxing gloves to go punch a boxing bag in the garage. And so we actually had a celebration in his backyard about 6 months ago where we started a small fire in the backyard, and he took his boxing gloves and, those little marshmallow sticks.
Yep.
He roasted those gloves because they were done. He didn't need them anymore. He was free of those meltdowns. And that's just one of many success stories that we have with individuals that have autism. But, with autism, the big things that they struggle with primarily low muscle tone, fine and gross motor skill deficiencies. And then you have the communication aspect where you have to really know how to communicate with them in order to get things done. You can't just tell them do a jumping jack and expect them to do a jumping jack. So there's a lot that goes into the exercise program design to address the low muscle tone, to address the motor skills. But we use a lot of principles from ABA in our workouts to help get them to actually do the exercise. They're not very motivated. And so we use things like positive reinforcers, reward systems to get them to actually comply and do the exercises. And, overall, I would say we have about an 80% success rate. I'd love to say that we can help everyone. We can't. But overall, we have about an 80% success rate. And that's all across the board, but also with autism.
Do you have the ability, for if somebody younger with autism wants to come in, wants to start training and their parents are there, do they have the ability to come with their therapist and kind of be guided there?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We've done it many times. I mean, we have incredible trainers that work with the company. And so typically we want our individuals, our athletes to be as independent as possible. We don't want a parent to have to pay extra money for a therapist to have to come in with session because that's not free. I mean, that somebody's paying for that. Mm-hmm. So 90% of the time, a therapist in the session is unnecessary. Are we open to it? Absolutely. But if we can save the parents and the families money and also promote independence, because remember, we want them to get away from relying on therapists and their parents for everything. A part of our mission is how can we get them to be as independent as possible? That is a part of our mission. And so, yes, we are their trainer, but during the training sessions, we're teaching them to do it on their own, make their own decisions, change the weight on their own, put the weights up on their own. And so in some ways, we actually discourage a therapist from being there unless there's severe maladaptive behaviors, then we do require a therapist.
Yeah, I really like the independence aspect. So do you kind of find, as they get into the workouts and more of a routine, is it sort of taking the gas out of the meltdown engine, that they have redirected the energy, the focus, and as time goes on, it's just, because I mean, even me, I get a real hard workout in or have a great week of workouts. I feel like I'm just calmer. I'm more focused. There's more clarity. Is it kind of along when we talk about adaptive fitness and autism, is that sort of what kicks in?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. There's endorphins, there's hormones that come into play. There's obviously the biggest component is what's happening in the brain. And so as a part of our model, in addition to the natural benefits of exercise for the brain, we actually do targeted brain exercises for our clients that help reduce meltdowns, that help correct the imbalances when there's a dominant left side or a dominant right side. There's too much of a dominance. We do corrective exercises.
Oh, I think the typical human brain, if somebody got on a really structured workout regimen, you would see that. But then go to autism, and I think you're absolutely right. I think it would be remarkable. I think this is a really underserved topic. I mean, I really think where you are with Special Strong, it's almost embryonic. I just feel like for so long it was like autistic kids will never be able to work out. They'll never be able to focus. They'll never be able to build muscle tone. And when you really start looking at what these kids need and exercise and regular exercise, I just really think you're onto something. And I love the aspect too of, no, you guys set up the weights, you set up the next work. I love that process, and my son Cal, I mean, he loves processes. He loves, understanding he's going to do this, he's going to do that, he's going to do that. And then this will happen, right? It's a chain reaction, and then he'll break it down and then reset. So I just love that aspect of keeping them interested. I want to touch real quick on the business opportunity here of Special Strong. So you're not a standalone, right? You don't have your own buildings nationwide, but you're inside other existing structures, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we use third-party facilities. Like as an example, we have a national partnership with 24-Hour Fitness all across the United States. So they're our preferred vendor that we like to use to bring in our athletes and train. But one of the reasons we use a third-party facility, there's a lot of benefits. Number one, the cost for the actual services are not as high because we don't have our own brick and mortar. And then the other nice thing about having access to those facilities is it really provides us with a much larger footprint that we can serve. And so if you think about a traditional gym, if you're a member there, you're going to have to travel to that gym. It might be 10 minutes away. It could be 30 minutes away. Whereas in our case, we might have 5 gyms in one particular territory. That way that whoever is needing that service, they drive enough for all the different therapies they have. So this reduces their drive time significantly, making it more convenient for them.
Yeah, it's an effective point, and a lot of families with autism understand usually there's a pitch count on a drive. We have kind of that 20-minute pitch count, and we know things could get challenging. So I again, it's a well thought out design for the families. So I appreciate that. Along with, people who are families of autistic kids that resource the channels and stuff like that, there are, business people, entrepreneurs. I know a lot of people who, have started great businesses and then their child was diagnosed with autism. They then pivoted their business to serve the category, the families of autism. There may be people looking to do that. I know you have a franchise model with Special Strong. I'm just a guy that I always say I want to connect people. My background was in the media business, and I didn't talk about autism, at all. But then when I realized that, this was going to be my life forever, maybe I should explore a media side of autism and connecting families and the entrepreneurs of the products and services of autism. So I just want to give you that shot to explain to somebody that may say, I want to be an entrepreneur space, a business person in the space, or a manager in the space. What does Special Strong, how would you guys connect somebody like that with their community, let's say?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that's unique about our franchise that's very different than traditional franchises is this is a very, very rewarding franchise. This is not a McDonald's where you're going to be a passive owner and collect a paycheck every month. And there's nothing wrong with McDonald's. But I think a lot of people especially these days, they're looking for something that is more rewarding and to where they can get a return on investment for whatever it is that they're doing. And so the unique thing about our model is you have both components where you're getting to do something that, everybody absolutely loves. You're getting to make a difference in a way that you can't do at a traditional franchise. And the returns are great. I mean, we certainly don't say that you're going to become a millionaire in this particular franchise, and that we're not looking for people like that. But you can make a decent living doing adaptive fitness training, having a team, having trainers that work with you and underneath you, and really serving your community and making a huge difference for a very affordable entry-level franchise price. And we've got a separate website, specialstrongfranchise.com, with all the information. But if there's an entrepreneur out there, or someone that is an entrepreneur that has a son or daughter with autism, or even knows somebody, or just has a heart for that population, it's worth having a conversation. And we have a 5-step process that we take everyone through. We are not selling franchises. We are awarding franchises. So statistically, we only award a franchise to 1 in every 10 prospects that come through the door. So we're not desperately trying to sell and just give these franchises. We're really looking for the right people that have the right character, the right competency, the right core values, and they ultimately care about this cause and have a heart for it. And so if anybody like that is interested, we love to just have a simple introductory 20-minute conversation over the phone. Where, again, it's not salesy, it's not pressure. Let's just get to know each other and see if this could or couldn't make sense. And if it makes sense, let's go through the 5-step process and see what it would look like for your family.
Yeah, it's interesting. This community, parents, or anybody really that may have a nephew or a neighbor or a coworker, a son or daughter with autism. The community is not one for the salesy, the pressure, kind of like the slick tactics. It's like we've seen it all, because of what we're handling at home, and so it's But the flip side of that is it's a very connected group of people. The community is just, I always tell people, you hear about word of mouth. There is nothing like word of mouth in the special needs community, and that could be good or bad, depending on the product or service. So it is a special community. It's a very powerful community, but one that if you treat the people right, they will reward you with a lot of positive chatter. So I think that's a great way to approach it. There he is, Daniel Stein, specialstrong.com. And what was the separate website again for the franchise model?
Yeah, it's a Special Strong Franchise.
Special Strong Franchise.com. Awesome. Yeah, you've got a lot of great stories and media on your website on specialstrong.com. I just kind of an uplifting run through the internet there last night, and I thought it was cool to see all the pictures. It's really cool that you documented all that. Thank you, Daniel. We'll be talking soon, brother.
I really appreciate the opportunity, Mark.
Just a lot there to get from Daniel, the owner of Special Strong at specialstrong.com, and not just the physical benefits for these young autistic kids and these adaptive fitness workouts, but again, the brain and what he's found in his research and developing this business and spreading it in multiple states. So I know it opened my eyes. I have realized that my son Cal needs more physical, I guess, adaptive physical work. But I did not even think about, what's going on in the brain when you're building muscle and going through the process and everything. So really valuable stuff there. Got to thank a couple of our partners here. And before we go here in just a minute or two, I'm going to give you some links to go to connect with us across all of our social media platforms, especially if you're a parent of an autistic child going through a diagnosis or fresh out of a diagnosis, or maybe you know somebody who is. Get to that in a second. First, thank you to the Lift Academy in Clearwater, Florida. This is their brand new campus. They've been working hard on this. Remarkable people doing remarkable work. You can go to liftfl.org, and I'll say that 95% of their students are on a scholarship, and that is a process that they are happy to help spearhead and help you get through. This, again, is an organization where I've seen the children there. I've seen the staff. It really is incredible. The Lift Academy, again, that brand new, unbelievable facility in Clearwater, Florida. They are, they have kids that are just learning about them for the first time and are starting there and are just doing great. Also, the original Krabby Bills, Indian Rocks Beach, Florida. Melissa and I have said it for a long time. The special needs lifestyle can be tough. You still have to get out. You have to live your life. You have to enjoy your life. And we thank our friends at the original Krabby Bills on Indian Rocks Beach for being such a strong supporter of the community that they serve. And don't forget, live music every day in the loading dock at Krabby Bills on Indian Rocks Beach, Florida. Also, Aeroflow Urology, they are shining a light on a really important issue, and that issue is the diaper divide that exists in the United States. And so many special needs families depend on incontinence products. And, like Florida, if you're a child and, you qualify for these incontinence products, many special needs children are not potty trained until much later in life. You can receive those, but then when you turn 18 as an adult, you don't receive those anymore. They're trying to change that, not only in Florida, but across the country. They have a petition, and you can go to dailyautism.com and find the link for that petition to help change that and help give some awareness to families and politicians across the country to help end the diaper divide. DailyAutism.com, and it's the Aeroflow Urology link. Again, we thank everybody for joining us for another radio show. Again, we stream 24/7, 365 days a week at DailyAutism.com. That is also where you can connect to all of our social media channels, and we love connecting with new families there at DailyAutism.com.